Okay, welcome guys. I'm going to do an end of the market wrap video because we've got some real movement in the markets. So I want to point that out. We're going to start out with the broader markets. But again, guys, if you're new and you are just kind of following along, you know, this channel is all about stock market trade ideas, and we use technical analysis to point out the ideas. So a lot of this movement that's happening today, I've been talking about it for the last couple days. I pointed out the levels to watch. And, so by the time the move shows up, I know me personally, I'm typically making money, and a lot of people are kind of scrambling, trying to figure out what's going on. We're just figuring out how much money we're going to make. So again, that's really what this channel is about. So if you like that, then leave me a thumbs up. Do appreciate that. And check out my course, link in the description below. Let's get going. SPY. So there's your breakdown, right? I talked about that earlier this morning. I've talked about that for the last couple of days. 410.88, you broke and just all selling. So that is a sell signal. That's what it looks like, all right? It's impulsive. Looking at the daily, big impulsive red candle. So once that level went, it was just all selling. The algos kick in and everything just turns to sell. And that's exactly what's going on. So we're seeing pretty broad-based selling across the board. I'll pull up the heat map and you can see right here, get rid of this ad, pretty broad-based selling across the board, okay? And that healthcare, which is a defensive, more defensive, is hanging in there. But, really just a lot of selling. And that's because the algos are just liquidating positions. So going back to the SPY, I think we're heading down to, let me get rid of this line for this discussion. We got a gap down here about 400. And so I think we've got it, we're about the halfway mark. This is a level where, we're going to hold right here. You can see some support right there where it traded for several hours and held some support. So we're probably going to hold. Maybe we get a little bounce here. All right. It's looking like this might be an area you get a bounce. I don't think the selling's done though. This is just the start. We just got the sell signal. So, I do think we've got, we got to get down to at least to this 400. And possibly lower, but for now we're just now seeing the selling show up. So I'm looking for lower prices, whether we bounce here or not. It's I don't think that's super relevant. Looking at the Qs, continuing to break down and head lower. So Qs 311 is the next level of major support. I think we get down in that area before we find a more sustainable bounce. Is that going to be is that the it? And then the buy the dip crew shows up. Well, I don't know. We did have a really long, big negative divergence on the SPY. If I go to the daily, you can see here, let me just zoom out right there. See the negative divergence that's just been building? It's been building really since it really showed up right here, right in here around August of 2020. And all of this price action has just been continued negative divergence. Each new high has been a divergent high. So now that we're starting to break, is this just a break and then we make a new divergent high? It's possible, but typically these big, long, extended negative divergences play out for big trend reversals. So I'm open to it. I think there's probably some more selling. It's possible we even sell all the way down to this trend line, about 371, 373. All right, that's kind of a longer term trend line. You can see all the reactions we have on the daily right there where there's 4. So we could come down and hit that. I'm open to that right now. And let's look at the IWM. IWM's just starting to break. So here's your 2020 lows. There's your trend line we're watching. Negative divergence is intact. And you can see we're just breaking down. So more and more selling's happening. This one's got a ways to go. So, 192. Would be a logical target for a bounce. Okay, I want to flip over to gold real quick because I've been covering this trade as a long trade. Gold's seeing a little bit of selling, but it's really not that bad when you really look at the selling that's taking place in these miners. So here's gold bullion, and I want to show you on the daily. Well, let's look at the hourly. Look where we came down to. You've got this breakout, kind of this impulsive candle right here, and then it's just traded sideways. Today, the selling just brought us right down to that support. So not that, it's still constructive, still holding that support. Gold's not really breaking down. I mean, it's not even down 1%. A little bit of selling, obviously, because they're selling everything, basically. But gold is hanging in there, and you'd expect that because Gold, usually when you have a really long uptrend and you start to have these crazy fast liquidation events, gold will liquidate as well. But when you have just a turn and, constant selling, gold doesn't always liquidate like the market will. Gold is a safe haven asset, and so sometimes when you get market selling, you'll see people moving into that safe haven asset like gold. And as I scan through these miners, just kind of keeping an eye on everything, you look at the daily chart, nothing's really technically been broken. Today, Barrick's selling down basically right to support. You see this breakout candle right here? Well, you've got support right there. That's where it closed, 23.54, and we're right in that area. So we're just selling down to support. Royal Gold is only down 0.5%. Let's look at this Wheaton one. Still close. Still uptrending. Whether we're selling down today, we're not technically breaking any structure. Here's Harmony selling right down to support and holding where you'd expect it to hold. This one's kind of chopping around, but still, looks constructive. And this is IM Gold. It still looks good from my perspective. Newmont, you can see, selling off, but no technical damage really done to the chart. Still looks like it's uptrending. And that's really what I see. Here's Sand, which is actually positive on the day. And so in general, these miners, GDX in general looks, still looks constructive. Selling down, maybe we'll close right at this 200-day moving average, but ultimately still looks like we're moving higher, uptrending, just having a down day within an uptrend. So I like these. I'm not pulling the trigger on any of these ones. They still look good to me. And we'll just kind of scan through these. A lot of these trade ideas have already started to really work, so they're not necessarily actionable at this moment. This is just a follow-up. Lift down, down making a new low today, continuing lower. We're running right down into that 200-day moving average. So I think we've got, down to 43.50 before we see a bounce. So lower on that one. That's working. Let's kind of scan through these SQ, down near the lows, near the 200-day moving average. But it's about 202 is the level of support. I think that goes, though. I think we're going to break that and head lower. This one's just getting started from my perspective. But down 6.5% today. Roku's kind of hanging in there. Nothing crazy on that one. Riot looks like it's working itself lower. So, again, Bitcoin is not a safe haven trade. It is a risk asset. So it is speculative. When the times are good and Bitcoin's ripping and everybody's making cash, that's when Bitcoin performs well. But it's selling off today as well. So not, Riot is a Bitcoin proxy and it's down 11%. Looks like it's going lower. Although Riot is probably hitting some level of support right in here. Looks like we've got some support right there at about, kind of right in there when we hit it just yesterday, but maybe about 25 or so. Snap's hanging in there, but still looks like it's going to work its way lower, eventually break down. AMD lower. So yeah, these are all just, going lower. I mean, all of these stocks look pretty weak and they all look, like they're going lower. Here's Redfin breaking down another 8%. So clearly downtrending. So in my mind, Redfin looks like it's headed down to this level, about 33.24. It's got a little ways to go to get down there. And here's Carvana breaking down another 5.5%, continuing lower. So ultimately 175. That's the target area. This still looks good. Below the 200-day and moving lower. Tesla's coming down into the 200-day moving average. Probably going to be some buyers there. So we'll, maybe look for a bounce. I don't know. I still think there's lower. So I'm probably going to ride out whatever kind of bounce is going on. I'm still short this thing. And I'm looking for 460, I think, as a minimum on this short trade. Possibly a lot lower. There's a lot of gaps right in here at 200. But I'm looking to probably take some profit there at 460. Which, as of right now, even though we'll likely get a bounce at the 200-day moving average, which is, just a little bit lower, I still think we got another 20% or so to the downside. Remember, Tesla ran up crazy. So it was at crazy valuations. So don't, don't underestimate the amount that it can fall to the downside. When these momentum stocks break, they can go a lot lower than you would expect. And here's some of the new trade ideas that I pointed out. Here's Starbucks down 3%. That's a sell signal on Starbucks. You know, it's going to close down. So there's a sell signal on Starbucks. Here's Deere. That's John Deere. That's a sell signal. Again, go back and watch my video from this morning. I really run through a lot of these charts in detail. But those are all sell signals. And then BYD is one that I've been talking about for about a week and a half. This thing's down almost 8% today. Clear downside, and we've been really watching this. I've been telling everyone it looked like a good setup. We're just waiting for that entry and that trigger. We got that entry and that trigger 2 days ago, and I talked about it, letting everyone know that I was shorting BYD. And sure enough, you know, really since the breakdown, even if you took it at the end of the day on the breakdown, you're still profitable by almost, you know, it's 9%. You're profitable by 9% in 2 days. All right. That's how the downside works. Typically, when the selling gets started, you fall a lot faster than you rise. So I think we've got some more downside. It looks like we'll close right in this area. But first level of support on BYD is about 55.33. So I don't think we'll get any kind of bounce, really, any sustainable bounce until we get down there. So any kind of bounce that we see is likely going to be fleeting, and they're going to sell into it. And then once we break that level, I think we're heading down to 43.60. That's a more substantial support level down there. So I think we'll have, you know, once we get through this first level up here at 55.30, then I think we're going right down to 43.77. Likely going to see a more sustainable bounce down there. Okay, so that's really it. Oh, and then commodities. Let's look at commodities real quick. Lumber. You know, lumber's got a sell signal today. So there's your uptrend line in the lumber futures. There's a clean sell signal. So these commodities, look at wheat. There's actually a sell signal in wheat right there. And corn, I don't have the trend line drawn, but if you mark it out something like this, corn's not quite on a sell signal. Corn still looks constructive, has not broke. But wheat is starting to break. We'll see how the day closes. A couple minutes to go. It's not that impulsive, but, you know, if we start to see these commodities break a little bit, there might be a little bit of just a broad-based sell-off in everything, including these commodities. So far, a lot of the commodities still look pretty constructive, and I still like the trade. And that's why a lot of these, the video I put out the other day, that it was titled Short Tech and Long Inflation. So from my mind, that's kind of a stagflation play where we've got growth, which is tech, and small caps selling off, and weak economic growth, and then we've got rising inflation. And that's kind of the play. That's what's working today for the most part. Gold is selling off a little bit, but still constructive. I think that's the initial reaction. I think they're going to buy gold up here because inflation's rising. Gold's an inflation hedge. So I do think they're going to buy gold up. And the miners still look constructive while tech is just getting taken out behind the woodshed. So that's what we got. Everything's working so far. So usually on days like this where trades are working, I've talked about the trades in advance, sometimes weeks in advance, sometimes days in advance. But everyone typically has a heads up, and that's kind of how I like to do it. So usually everything, I try to give you guys advanced warning on trades that I think are going to play out. I tell you where things are heading or where I think they're going to go. And then when they work, we just manage the trade. Leave me a thumbs up on your way out, and I'll catch you guys.